Hello, this is Rob here from robcoven.com. It's very important that you know when you're working on an image in Photoshop the usage, because that determines the resolution, the size and the image mode. So it's not a very exciting lesson, I do apologise. We will get on to some more exciting stuff later, but we have to get these basics down first of all. So let's get going. So when you're working with images in Photoshop, they may be used for web on screen, or they may be used for print, meaning brochures, newspapers, magazines, any sort of printed material. Now, these two image types are completely different. A very, very simple generalization would be web images need to be as small as possible and print images need to be as large as possible. And I'll show you exactly what I mean here. So, for the web, let's say we're creating a web graphic that's 50 pixels by 50 pixels on your screen. Very, very small square. That would need to be 50 pixels by 50 pixels in Photoshop. Surprise, surprise. But it also needs to be 72 ppi, pixels per inch, and I'll show you this later. Finally, the image mode needs to be RGB. RGB for on-screen images. So let's go to something completely different, and let's pretend we're working on a photo that's going to be printed in a magazine, and in that magazine it's going to be printed by 10 inches by 5 inches, so a very large image. So if you were doing that, you would be working on a Photoshop document that size, so it would be 10 inches by 5 inches in size, and it would also be a much higher resolution, 300 ppi. So a very much bigger image. And lastly, the image mode will be CMYK, not RGB. And lastly, I've got in the middle here, maybe you're creating images for PowerPoint presentations or for PDFs that will only be seen on screen. I would make them halfway in between in terms of resolution. I make them 150 to 200 ppi. And they would be RGB, of course, because they are for on screen. So let's show you what I actually mean about all this. So here is an image, and this is a stock image from Shutterstock. So in order to find out its size, we go to Image, Image Size, or Command or Control Option I. And if we look at the document size for starters, we can see that it's 8.5 centimeters wide by 5.5 centimeters tall, and it's 300 ppi. Now, if you're a bit confused about centimeters, you can always change them to inches, and you can see it's about 3 by 2 inches. So it's quite a small image. Now, remember that's 300 dpi, so this would be okay if we wanted to print it as a small image in a magazine or on some sort of printed material. And of course, there's one last thing to do. We need to change the mode from RGB to CMYK because it's for print, not web. You don't have to do this. Don't worry, you can send RGB images to print and they will get converted during the printing process. But I'm just showing you the best practices here. So we would save this as anything. It could be a JPEG, a TIFF, or a Photoshop document, but if it's a JPEG, let's just call it cprint CMYK. If you are saving it as a JPEG, just remember to keep the quality right up to maximum. The only time you go down to minimum is to keep the file size small, but we don't have to worry about file sizes because this is print. So now let's go back to our original image in RGB from the stock library, and let's just pretend we're going to put this in a WordPress post for web. So this is going to be an image on a website. So we go Command or Control Shift I, and first of all we cut down the resolution to 72 because it's a web-based image, and let's say we want to print this out at 700 pixels wide. So we put 700 there, and because we're constraining proportions, the height will change accordingly. And already you can see that the pixel dimensions are much smaller than they were. So the image now is at the correct size, the same size as it would be on the website. So let's give it a bit of saturation. And save for web, which is Command or Control Option Shift S, or File, Save for Web and Devices. And here we've got a decision to make. As it's a photograph, we'll save it as a JPEG. If it was a graphic, we would save it as a PNG 8. But we're saving it as a JPEG, and this quality number is all important. You want to keep this down as far as possible. Let's make it 40. 40 is usually a good number, because this is the all-important number, the file size. You want to keep your images as small as possible on the web. So 23.8K is just about okay for a large photograph like this. So we click save, and as it's for the web, we have to be descriptive and put keywords in the title. So let's go man's hand reaching out of blue sea. When you're saving for web, you shouldn't have any spaces, but Photoshop knows this and it will put hyphens for where I've put spaces. So I'll save that, and there is the image with the file name with hyphens in it, so it's a good file name for web. And remember that size, it's actually gone up a little bit to 25 on the desktop, but it's still small enough for a large image on a website. So I'll just show you very quickly on the web how we would publish this, but if you want to learn about WordPress, you'd need to do another course, of course. But we'll go add new post, give the post a title, image post, and add media, upload file, and let's select that file that I saved for web and devices in Photoshop. Put in some alt text, insert into post, and then if we go preview, here is my website, and there is the image successfully published in the web. So I hope you enjoyed that. It's how to save an image for web in Photoshop. I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.